Hello, and welcome to Crimax. This week's story is going to be about the 1993 siege on the Branch Davidian cult compound in Waco, Texas. Now, if I'm not mistaken, my love, didn't we do a podcast about Waco, Texas? Something, I can't remember.
Yeah, our first serial killer we covered was John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown, and he actually worked in Waco, Texas for a while, and I mentioned it then. Like, Waco was a thing we should cover in one episode, and we're doing it now.
Yes, I remember that now. I just know the Waco kind of stood out to me, and I believe, yep, the big old lovable clown.
Not so lovable clown, but he loved little boys. That's so gross.
Who doesn't like clowns?
I don't care for him. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, really. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to you for a little bit more synopsis before we get into our fact that actually kind of goes with the story. It's actually kind of interesting and hilarious at the same time.
Okay, cool. So today we're talking about the Waco, Texas siege on the Branch Davidian compound, like we said. And I just wanted to say that I'm going to take this from the side of the facts, like what is reported about this. There's always controversies and everything. Also, this will not be a podcast on gun control at all. So that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what actually happened. And yeah, let's go ahead and get to the fun fact.
So I decided to actually do a little bit of research in order to keep it with our story here. And I decided to look back through history and see just how many federal government standoffs there have been in the United States. And from what I could find since 1969, there have been about 11. So there's really only one that lasted a significant amount more, but this one's actually hilarious. So there was a standoff in Plainfield, New Hampshire back in 2007. No civilians or federal agents were killed, so nobody was really harmed. I'm just going to give a brief summary of it. Ed and Elaine Brown claimed that they were exempt from income taxes.
I feel that.
I love it, right? Good, solid beginning. A contention that the federal government disputed. So for more than 200 days, the pair stayed inside their home while the outside was rigged with booby traps. As it was reported, the two were captured when they allowed a federal agent disguised as a pizza delivery man inside.
I love that. I love that so much.
That is some hilarious.
They didn't want to pay taxes, but they wanted pizza.
Heck yes.
It's so funny.
For more than 200 days, and that's what got them.
I feel like we're allowed to laugh at that because nobody got hurt, but oh my God. Like, what kind of booby traps are you setting in your house? I want to know.
I don't know, but man, whatever New Hampshire's doing, I'd expect it to be somewhere like, hey, Florida,
New Jersey, pizza.
All right, so let's get into our story here. It's going to be a pretty beefy one, so.
Beefy?
Lengthy, long, I don't know.
Like those beefy grillers they had at Taco Bell and they took away. Some messed up stuff.
No, that was never my thing.
Oh my God. They took away all my things. All right, let's get into it. Alright, so today we're covering a cult again, and I love doing cult cases. The only one we did so far was Heaven's Gate. So I'm glad you chose this one because I got to do a lot of research and a lot of it's controversial. So do you know anything about this, like other than what I've briefly told you?
No, not really.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, you were one. I didn't exist, so.
Woo!
Okay, so let's go ahead and start talking about the cult before we get into the day of the incident. This did last 51 days overall for this siege from the ATF. So the cult responsible for the Waco, Texas siege was a group of about 100 Branch Davidians. The Branch Davidians is the name of the cult, which I hadn't heard of other than for this purpose. All of the Branch Davidians were following David Koresh, who they described as the second coming of God. He thought he was like better than Jesus himself. He said like he's better than Jesus because he was born with a original sin. Like as a human, you're automatically born as a sinner. And like he said, Jesus didn't have that, so he was better related to the people in that aspect. So that's one thing he said, and he thought he was like the second coming. The religion itself started back in 1955, and it went through a couple different changes. At its peak, it had around 1,200 members, but at the time of the 90s, it only had about 100 living in this compound. Koresh said he had prophecies of Daniel that would be fulfilled in Waco, and that Mount Carmel Center was the Davidic kingdom. I don't know what any of that means. I'm not a religious person. I don't know anything about the David stuff. But the cult and its members all lived in the same compound. Some of the children had never even left the compound. They had lived there their entire lives. They'd never left the scene. Now, a lot of the things that the cults believed in was that he was the second coming of God. They also only allowed him to have sex with the women in this cult. He had many wives, the youngest being about 12 years old, which is disgusting. That's not a thing that should happen. Even the married women who were married to other people were only allowed to have sex with this man. He had 15 children in total. His plan was to have 24 children. It was some kind of prophecy he had.
This dude was messed up.
About which thing? Because honestly, every cult that's like polygamy cult, I'm just like,
All of it.
Oh, I hate it. I hate it so much. And it's always children too. It's always multiple wives and sexually abusing children.
Yeah. That's just because in that aspect, children are easy.
I guess. But he thought like everything belonged to him. Like these things were property to him.
Yeah. It's also illegal nowadays.
Yeah, and there's still cults that practice it now that are like doing fine because you can't technically prove it if you like have multiple wives. It's hard to prove.
Yeah.
And of course, they're not going to snitch on their
Plus,
children.
of course, I mean, polygamy isn't illegal as long as they're of age.
No, polygamy is illegal. You can't have multiple spouses.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you can have like a civil union, or you could live with someone for more than 5 years and be considered a domestic partner.
Yeah.
But you can only legally be married to one person at a time. Or the other ones are invalid. So you can have a ceremony, but it legally isn't binding. Now that's a little bit about the cult beliefs and everything. They also had like a lot of people who were gun enthusiasts, and a lot of the money they made to keep the compound, this big building they were all living in together, was selling guns at a discounted price from different stuff and then selling them at gun shows. So they were gun enthusiasts, and there's nothing illegal about that. But the ATF, which is the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Bureau, became aware of the Branch Davidian members living in this huge compact, hoarding weapons. So they were stockpiling weapons. They were also doing illegal things like turning inert hand grenades to live ones. So you can have hand grenades as long as they are not able to be used, but you can also repair them if you technically wanted to, like by welding the bottom if they have a hole drill in it, or whatever you want to it. Honestly, it doesn't seem that difficult, which is probably a bad thing since you can buy them legally. But they were turning them into live weapons, which is illegal. They also had an underground shooting range to practice their weapons and aim and everything, which I thought they must have a lot of money if they have an underground firing range, right?
As long as you've got a big enough building, you're out in the middle of the desert. You can easily dig that.
Yeah, but if you're making all your money working at gun shows, you really think you're making that much money?
Baby, you're in Texas. It's all dirt. All you need is a shovel.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. And I mean, guess Texas is the best place to sell weapons.
Yeah.
But they were doing things illegally, and they had an underground range, which I thought was a neat little fact. So they had an undercover officer gain access to David Koresh, the leader of the cult, and he like learned the layout of the building, like what the workings were, how everything was set up. And after that, they found out like what they had going on. They issued a search warrant. Now, about 80 to 90 agents were in charge of how to plan and properly execute this raid on the building without any incident. But clearly, we're talking about it, so it did not go to plan. The land was so flat, because again, we're in Texas, everything was so flat, you could see anyone coming from miles down the road. I mean, they're in the middle of nowhere, basically. They were near St. Carmel, which is Carmel. St. Carmel. Do you say caramel or Carmel?
Depends on the situation.
I say both, yeah. But they were there in Waco, so it was like really flat land. Actually, fun fact, even though all this happened, you can actually go to the site of this. It's open to the public. The government didn't like shut down the land. They didn't like put a sign up, say this is private property. The Branch Davidians that survived this attack actually built like their own memorial for it. They built a church and a big lake where the building once was. So like you can go check out Waco if you want, and it's open to the public.
I wonder if the firing range still works.
Oh no, the building's gone. The building went down that into this story, but like where the building was, they turned it into a big pond full of like koi fish, and you can just go walk up to it. Apparently it's beautiful. But I thought that was fun fact, so it's still open now.
Oh, this was a scene of a horrible mass tragedy. And now it's a koi pond.
And now it's a koi pond. I'm surprised the government wasn't like, this is like private property now, you can't come in here. Yeah. There's literally no one there. It's just an empty gate. You open yourself and you just walk around. They built a church and everything in there, which I thought was kind of odd. Like, clearly your religion-y thing didn't work out for you. Don't put a church here. Now, because the land was so flat, like I said, you could see anyone coming for miles. The original plan, like the usual plan people do is, okay, we're going to surround the building, take everybody out. They couldn't do that in this incident. So what they planned was they took pickup trucks and then they pulled cattle things, like big cattle vehicles behind it. So you could load a whole bunch of people into the cattle truck, and it looks like, you know, it doesn't look like a police vehicle riding up, which I thought was a really smart plan, and that's what they did when they decided to execute the search warrant. They had a worry that the cult members would commit suicide. Like, the undercover agent and everything had talked to members, especially ex-members who had left the cult before this happened, said that the cult members were actually planned on, if anything ever happened, they would commit suicide. Even the women were instructed to not shoot the side of your head because you could miss or you could survive from it. Shoot yourself in the top of the roof of your mouth, so that way you're guaranteed to be dead. So they had a plan that, like, okay, if we go in here, they might kill each other. So let's try to do it the best way possible without any injuries. Also, the members were not scared to die because David Koresh, their new Jesus and everything, said that they could raise people from the dead. So a fun fact is this man, under his first name before he changed his name to David Koresh, was actually arrested for attempted murder. He tried to have a raise the dead off with someone else. So there was two messiahs, right? And they were both like, I can raise someone from the dead. No, I can raise someone from the dead. So they dug a body, wrapped it in the Star of David, and tried to, like, do things over the body. Someone who had been dead for 20 years, mind you, and they were really upset when she didn't come back to life. So they started shooting each other. So he had attempted murder charge, but they got a hung jury and they just dropped the charges. But this man really thinks he could raise people from the dead, and it didn't work beforehand, but he's telling all of his followers, like, hey, you know what, you might die, but in 3 days I can have you back up here running again. That's some crazy shit. Like a battle of who can raise a corpse. And after 20 years, you know you're skeletal.
My mind is just, I wonder how the other guy is, like, doing right now. Because he's like, oh, I know that guy. I'm going to go the other way.
We tried to kill each other because we couldn't bring a body up again.
It's like, so this is what happens if I go that route. Well, time to turn my life around.
Maybe he did.
a functioning member of society.
Maybe he did, but, like, that's such a weird thing to do. Like, no, I can raise him from the dead. It's so childish. Also, if they were, like, maybe if it was a fresh corpse, I'm not going to say you had a chance because that's crazy, but, like, someone who was dead for 20 years is what you decided to do this on, you know?
Yeah, but also, where'd they get the body?
Oh, they dug it up. Yeah.
So they didn't get that charge? Desecration?
No, desecration of corpse, no. It was mostly the attempted murder. That was the more higher ranking charge. They were trying to get that one to stick, but they had a hung jury on it, whether he was guilty or not, because the other guy was shooting at him too, so he never got charged with it. So they went for the higher charge, and it still fell through, which does happen. But I just thought that was crazy. So he was telling his cult members, like, hey, kill yourself in the roof of your mouth, I can bring you back. So on February 28th, 1993 at 9 a.m., 77 ATF agents loaded up into these cattle trucks to try to secure the area without incident. Now, because a lot of the workers for the cult were doing yard work outside early in the morning hours, that's why they tried to do it so early in the morning.
Yard work? You're in a desert.
Yeah, but they're trying to build onto their compounds. They were, like, outside working on it.
Okay, I'll give them that.
Yeah, but they were outside a lot, and they were unarmed when they were working outside, so they were like, hey, they're working at this time, let me go ahead and, like, do it now so we can get people without incident, which makes sense to me. However, a news reporter had been tipped off that there was something going down over here. They stopped a mailman and was like, hey, where is this? The mailman told them, and, like, they were like, hey, why do you want to know where this place is? And the mailman was the brother of a leader of the cult, so they got tipped off, and no one was outside working when the ATF went to go raid the site.
Nice.
So thanks, news guy, for blowing their cover. And actually, the History Channel interviewed the news guy. He seemed to have no qualms with what he did. He was just, like, trying to get the story. Now, a little after 9 a.m., the raid took place. There were National Guard helicopters flying overhead of the compound, and the trailers carrying the agents got to the scene. They rushed up to the scene. David Koresh walked outside to see what was going on. They thought maybe it was cattle workers who had pulled up to the compound before he saw the helicopters. And he was confronted by officers, told him, hey, we're the cops. Surrender, you know, come with us. But of course, David Koresh just walked back inside, and this is where people don't know who shot first. It is reported that maybe a ATF officer killed one of the cult dogs on the scene, and that's what started it. The government claims that it was, you know, the cult. The leader went back inside and they started firing. I believe that personally. Now, there were 77 agents on the scene that day, like I said, but they were not prepared for the amount of firearms that they had inside the building. Apparently, they had no real understanding of the amount of weaponry that the cult had. Now, a lot of agents were injured by rifles and grenades. The most predominant guns they had were AR-15s and AK-47s, which, I mean, for the 90s, those are very popular weapons. But a lot of agents were injured that way, a lot of them that survived the day actually still have bullets inside of them because it was more dangerous to remove them than to leave them in, you know? Like, I feel like a bullet's gonna stay intact inside of you as long as it's not damaging any tissue or organs.
Yeah, but you also have the bad thing of the metals and stuff leaching into your body.
Yeah. But, I mean, they left a lot of bullets in these people that survived.
Yeah. Nowadays, that wouldn't be so much of a thing. We can unless it's wrapped up near, like...
Well, a lot of them were near the chest area, so you don't want to really go near the spine or the heart.
That's what I'm saying, is if it's, like, near the spine, where it's really deeply in, like, near the nervous structure, then that's a different story. Might have to, take a little bit more precautions. Usually, if it's near an organ or so... we might possibly have the capabilities nowadays to where that's not...
But 1993 was...
No, yeah. So I'm saying nowadays, stuff like that's more doable.
Yeah, I don't hear about that nowadays, but I thought it was really interesting they left a lot of them in, you know? But I don't know if it was different back then with technology and stuff.
Yeah, but over years, that it'll be a problem, without a doubt, yeah.
Well, they interviewed a lot of people, for the 20th anniversary of this stuff, and they seemed okay, but you never know. You never know what's going to happen 20 or more years down the line. But anyways, they started getting fired at. Everybody was getting injured on the scene because they didn't expect so much firearms and everything. So there was a bus in the front of the compound a lot of agents hid behind to try to block fire and everything. They used ladders to try to enter from the second level or to get on the roof and try to get a better standpoint so they can't get shot from underneath. But the cult members on the second floor were shooting through the walls, through the roof, and shooting up into the ceiling to hit people from the roof. So they actually got one smoke grenade inside, and that's when the first cult member died. So one officer, who is the one who has bullets inside of him still, actually threw in a smoke grenade, got in through the window, shot a dude 3 times, and that was the first cult member to die. By that time, 2 ATF agents were already dead. At 9:45 a.m., the ATF agents that were injured and all the ambulances in the county were already on the scene, but they still needed more help. Cult member Wayne Martin called 911, trying to call off the raid. They're like, there's women and children here, call it off, just call it off. But obviously, you can't just call something off once it started. They're not going to let you win. But also, they were so overwhelmed on the scene that they never got this call. They kept calling on the radio, trying to get someone to answer it, but they were so overwhelmed by gunfire that they couldn't answer it. So they had no idea there was a call of trying to get negotiations. David Koresh got on the phone call after Wayne Martin did and started quoting the Bible, talking about theology, and wanted to talk about what life was about to the negotiator on the other end of the dispatcher. And that didn't go very well, so he tried to get the phone call back to the other guy who was more willing to negotiate. But it's obvious that even though people were being shot, his own people outside, David Koresh was not scared of this at all and just wanted to talk about what his vision for life was, which is really strange. Now, after 2 hours on the phone with negotiation, 911 operator, who was a lieutenant, said that he was able to negotiate a ceasefire. So they were able to get off the phone and cease fire between these two people within 45 minutes of this happening. And they were able to get the dead and injured agents off the scene and flee the scene. They only gave them 4 minutes to take your people, clean them up, and go, which is a lot when it's 77 people. By the end of the first morning, by noon, 4 agents were dead and 14 were injured. 17 total injured for that day, if you include people who got injured fleeing the scene and trying to pull people out from, there was one guy buried underneath of a bus. They had buried a bus underneath the ground, and one guy was hidden in there. 2 people got injured, tried to drag him out from there. Now, later that same afternoon, after they originally fled the scene, there were more agents posted onto the building. Obviously, they were not going to let them just live peacefully after the situation happened. So other agents, as well as the FBI, started posting up positioning snipers, making a perimeter around the compound, and calling in extra reinforcements. So they already had ATF and National Guard. Now they have ATF, National Guard, FBI, everyone's there. A total of 899 agents worked on this case during the 51-day raid.
899?
899.
That's going to bug the crap out of me. Get another agent in there.
One more, just to make it 900.
Oh my God, yes.
Call your dude. But yeah, between local police departments, ambulances.
Yeah. Now I know what strategy I would have went with, but I'm going to see how this ends out first.
Well, I already had a strategy. I'm always just gas them. That is always my strategy. Even with the guy we talked about who killed someone on a bus. Gas them. Yep. The fuck they gonna do about it?
That's what I would say. CS gas. Yeah. But that's what I would have did, is just...
straight off the bat, day one.
As much as I can, because obviously these guys are heavily fortified.
Apparently they didn't know how fortified.
They're heavily fortified. You can't get air or ground on there. So the only way...
They can see you coming.
Yep, and the only way, take away their advantage. To have them come out. Make them come out.
Yeah, asking nicely didn't fucking work.
Yeah, and that would probably be the best. I mean, even so, it's not perfect because I mean,
well, they do.
You don't know
that.
if there's different stories. They could have just headed deeper down. But even if they headed deeper down, then you could inch up on them.
Absolutely. I mean,
but yeah, I'd have gassed the crap out of them.
They do that eventually, but it doesn't exactly go according to plan.
Yeah.
But straight off the bat, they wouldn't have made it a day two if I was there. I'm like, you're gassing these motherfuckers.
I would have just kept gassing them and gassing them, and if they don't come out...
But why are you negotiating with them is my thing. They already killed 4 of your people. They injured like 14 of them. Yeah. Get it over with. Get it over with. They're thinking of strategies too. I have that.
Well, see, at the same time, negotiations... It might not exactly be the strategy to negotiate. It's basically just a saying, hey, we're going to take some time to kind of restock, re-strategize, collect our people and all this stuff. So they're kind of, it gives them a little bit of time to also prep for doing something else.
Exactly.
Right.
Or anybody who's not trained, they literally have a training field there.
But yes, also it does go both ways. You know, it allows them the time to do it.
Yeah, but also I feel like this kind of situation, 51 days. What the fuck were you doing for 51 days?
Well, I mean, something like this is kind of interesting because, well, the only reason that they're doing this is because
they want everyone out.
Well, not just that. It's the women and the children, or at least more so the children, right? They don't want to kill everybody.
But they also knew the layout of this building, and they knew there was a bunker.
Yeah.
So you know the women and children are hiding in the bunker.
Yeah. That's what you would hope. I mean, they don't really necessarily know anything. They could speculate.
I mean, they had a guy inside the place, like, scoping out before they did the search warrants. They know the layout.
Oh. Then, yeah, I'd have just gassed the crap out of it.
I mean, you might not know every nook and cranny.
Probably what I would have did...
I guarantee they'll leave out.
Oh, I will. No, trust me, from someone who's been through a couple gas chambers.
It's so horrible, honey. I don't like thinking about that.
It's great. I like it.
No, you don't. Shut up.
Well, no, what I would have did is, with their idea to kind of get behind a bus or something like that, you know, put some plating on some vehicles, make like a nice wall barrier that your men can hide behind that's, you know, would shield them from bullets and stuff. Now, it wouldn't necessarily help with grenades if they throw grenades out, whatnot.
Yeah, they did.
However, you just keep gassing the crap out of them, and as you do it, just inch closer and closer. You know, just you'd have to watch out for grenades and stuff. Like, as long as you know the extent of the weaponry. Like, they got AKs,
AR-15,
ARs, and grenades. Cool.
They have other handguns too.
As long as they don't have anything like a rocket launcher or anything like that. Again, just make a nice barricade, like SWAT vehicles or something like that, with a nice, you know, thick plated bumper on the front.
Well, here's the thing. After the morning thing happened, the afternoon they had 16 tanks already.
They had tanks?
16 tanks, as well as like armored SWAT
we did
vehicles.
Or they did?
The fucking government did.
Then what the heck?
I mean, they got them over after the first thing went down because they didn't expect it. But like, yeah, 16 tanks they said, as well as 4 like SWAT armored vehicles.
Okay, that's a game changer.
Isn't it? They use it in a minute, like later on in the story, but...
You know, I wonder. I would have just kept gassing and gassing and gassing as I get closer and closer, and then just all out, just bum rush them, and just...
They're going to be disoriented.
Snap judgments.
You know, they're going to be disoriented. They're going to be out of it.
Of course, at the same time, there's going to be some that are going to come out.
They did, actually. A couple did, but they didn't have many. A couple people who survived the end of it.
That would probably be the only thing I could think of, is just keep doing it, because you either need them to come out or you need to have a way to get closer. Otherwise, yeah, you're standing off for eternity.
You know, we're talking about this, and you know, people are gonna be really mad at us because people think they used excessive force on like the Branch Davidians and stuff. But my thing is 51 days. Honestly, isn't it mental torture for the women and children, everyone who's not shooting, to be stuck in that situation for 51 days? I feel like that's more traumatizing than just like gassing them out.
Of course, then again, however...
We're also more violent people than normal people.
Yeah. But another option, which at this point it probably did lead to that, is just who's going to have their resources deplete first. You know, ammo.
True.
Well, they probably were good on food and stuff. But even, I mean, at that point, 51 days, you also got to think about, and they got, what, 100 people, give or take?
Yeah.
You know, food, ammo. I mean, obviously, we're not going to run out because we're the government. We're America.
I mean, honestly, though,
so
they're not going to run out either. If you actually, I'll tell you at the end, like, what they had stockpiled. But whew,
Yeah.
my thumbs hurt just thinking about it.
It's just I figured if they had something like this, they might have also been prepared with like gas stuff.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But yeah, that's what that would have been my like. I mean, again, I'd have to see.
Inch forward. You gotta make progress.
Exactly, and just keep gassing the crap out of them.
Yeah, they didn't do any of that. Their methods on trying to get these people out during the 51 days was they would like leave bright lights on and shine it through their windows so they couldn't sleep, which is
boo-hoo.
They can put a sheet over their face, they're gonna sleep, it's fine. Yeah. They would also play weird noises. So they would play Nancy Sinatra's These Boots Are Made for Walking.
They're going psychological with them?
Yeah, they would play rabbit noises of rabbits being tortured, like squealing rabbit noises at them to try to keep them awake, which is, again, weird. It's so fucking weird. My boots are made for walking is what you're going to play on to repeat for an hour. They also would cut the Branch Davidians' electricity, which it was February, March, April in Texas, so it wasn't devastatingly hot or cold then, but they would cut their electricity, they would shine bright lights in there and just try to wear them down, which I get makes sense, but to me you're not making any progress.
Yeah, I know.
You're just letting them call in and negotiate.
You're doing passive techniques.
Exactly.
Right?
And these people are not passive.
Sure, those are great, but you also have to do a combination of active techniques. Like, it's great that you tire them out and you try and get into their head, so that way they're like, whatever, but you need something active that's going to really set them over. Like, sure, do your psychological things. Maybe they get a little bit stressed, right? And then gas them. That's going to freak them out even more, because...
So our fun fact, when we talked about this couple who didn't want to pay taxes and they locked themselves in their home and stuff, to me, that's where you do the psychological thing. Not people who had shot at you and killed people. Those people were too violent for you to sit there and play a little noise at them. To me, that's, you got to make progress.
Yeah, I know.
It doesn't make sense. Now, David Koresh, the leader of the cult, was calling into news stations and trying to tell them his side of the story and preaching on the TV and stuff. He said that I knew they were coming even before they knew they were coming because I know everything, I'm Jesus and stuff. He would also say that, he doesn't know what he's going to do yet. He's hanging out in the compound, just waiting for a message from God to tell him what to do. At one point, he had got all his people. They were ready to walk out the door, and he changed his mind. He's like, no, we're not going anywhere. And they sat in there for another 30 days. The perimeter was far enough away that they could see if anyone was trying to escape the compound, but no one actually tried. But they were still within a dangerous range, so if they had sniper rifles, they didn't know what they had inside, they would still be in harm's way. So David Koresh would also call in to negotiate things. He's like, hey, if you play my sermon on TV for 2 hours this morning, I'll let some women and children go. Now the thing is, I've said this guy had 15 kids. He did not let any of his children go. He only let outside children go. So he would get his story out to the people, let a couple people go at a time, but there were still over 80 people inside the compound when this ended. Now, someone who had actually left, they had gotten out, it was a wife and a child who got out, they said that he's a plan. He had an injured wrist from the initial attack that happened in February, and that David Koresh's body was going to be wheeled out on a stretcher he's injured and he needed help. The government would help him. He was rigged with explosives, and then he would blow up. And then when he was exploding, everybody's distracted by that, other people from inside the building would come out and attack the agents trying to rescue the other ones. So they had a plan of attack. If he had gotten his wrist infected and then needed to be on a stretcher, he was just going to blow himself up. As one does, a martyr. Yeah. For whatever his fucking cause is. His cause is himself. You know? These people were so fucking self-centered.
You know what's funny is I had another thought too. Although, it didn't help him back then because I don't think we had the technology back then. See, nowadays, it's great because you can mount a 50 cal on a little remote control vehicle that's actually pretty decently armored.
Or a drone.
Yeah, or a drone. That works too as well. Put a missile on. But at the same time, they are trying to not kill as many people.
Right, they don't want to kill
Which I understand that. But at some point in time, you got to try and be like, hey, this is the psychology of the thing. After 51 days of getting nowhere, he's
getting more famous. That's what's happening.
Well, not even that. And then at the very end, when you decide to finally act, they just... Well, I don't want to spoil the ending, but...
I think they know, honey.
Okay. Anyways. But yeah, after 51 days, you do all this, and then they just burn themselves up. So at that point, it's all for nothing. So
you can never expect that to happen. No one expects that to happen.
No, but at the same time, you gotta... That's where the whole psychology thing comes into play. But also, I guess just, again... Me and you are a little bit more aggressive.
Yes.
We would not have let this dragged out.
No.
I mean, at least with me, I would have tried to, you know, possibly find a way to where, you know, we didn't kill everyone. You would have just bombed the place.
No, honey, if there was like innocent people inside, there was women and children inside, especially children, I'm like...
Yeah. Of course, at the same time, also, I guarantee you most of the women are brainwashed as well. So I guarantee you the women are also shooting.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying. I was about to say that, like, the women are not innocent.
So with me, I would be focused on the children.
Yeah, because honestly, women are not as innocent as people say. Oh, there's women and children here. Women are assholes too. They're not any better than anybody else.
But yeah.
And you know what? They brought their children into the environment. Maybe they deserve this bullshit.
But with drones and stuff, yeah, you can shoot those out of the air. So that's what I'm saying. Get a really nice, like, armored remote control vehicle. Mount a freaking, I don't know, beanbag shotgun or something to that thing. Or just CS gas or something, right?
Okay, I did not mean to say they deserve it. I just meant to say that, like, they were part of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just send that thing in there. Just send a bunch of them. You got 899 people, right? Just send a bunch of them from every angle and just start lighting it up remotely. Of course, then again, back then they didn't have
You don't need to kill them, though.
That's what I'm saying. Get beanbag, sim rounds, rubber bullets.
Yeah, but you're not going to know where everybody is.
Hurt. That's the beauty.
Babe, you got shot with one?
I got shot with a couple.
Why? Oh, we told about this. We talked about this.
Yeah. Never mess with the QRF Marines, all right?
Or any of them.
But yeah, so, well, not mess with them, but I help them train. So
you're still messing with them.
But yeah, so yeah, you can send in a nice heavy vehicle that literally, unless they throw a grenade at it, it's not going anywhere.
A tank.
Pretty much, like a mini tank. And, you know, with some sim rounds, rubber bullets or something like that, right? Incapacitation rounds.
Here's the thing, though. I feel like some dude with a rifle would stand in front of a bunch of women and children and is like, hey, you want to shoot me? You're going to have a risk shooting these people, too, you know?
That's where the beanbags come in. They're not
I know, but a child could really get hurt with that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Nobody wants that. There's 26 children inside. That's a lot.
You know, set off a crap load of,
say gas them, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That is literally, from this scenario, that is literally the only thing you can do. Where you can't even get close, you either have to make them come out to you or you need to find a way to get close, which means you need to take out their senses.
Yeah, it's not going to work with just handguns here. They have full load rifles. Exactly. With like a 30-round magazine.
The only other thing that they could have possibly have did is to create cover. Yeah, so really, honestly... Gas. You got to inch forward. You got to make progress.
Exactly. You can't just give them all the room they want.
Exactly. And then once you do make progress, like with the gas... It's gonna, you know, I don't know if anyone knows how CS gas works, but it messes with your sinuses. I mean, you're just drooling snot, your eyes, you can't really see out of your eyes because you're, you know, starting to swell up, makes your throat itchy. A lot of people psychologically, they freak out and they have to get out. So
they panic. It's a panicking thing.
A lot of people come out. Those that don't come out, yeah, you're still, I mean, it's going to be very hard for them to see, very hard for them to kind of breathe. And at that point, I mean, you can get close. Once you get close enough, you just take it over.
Honestly, though, if you watch a lot of people who do get hit with it, they go lower. They think they're going to, like, it's up here, they go lower. You can get in there then.
Oh, yeah. But also with the CS gases, after a while, it does sink down. So it will.
Everything does.
It will eventually make its way down to the lower levels.
But people have the same reaction they do when it's fire. Get down. So it's not on you, but it's not always going to work. Now, they do use CS gas here in a second, but again, it doesn't really work. But, like, that would be my first plan from day one. This wouldn't last 51 days. That's ridiculous. Like, who is in charge here?
That wouldn't have been my first plan.
That's my first plan.
But
they're shooting you. They're killing agents and stuff. You don't know what else they have in there.
Yeah.
You don't know what these people are capable of. Clearly, we're underestimating this.
Yeah, you want to try and see their capabilities before you want to try and get close. Because, I mean, if you start CS gassing them and you get close and all of a sudden they have an RPG... That ain't gonna work.
So on day 46, David Koresh gives his lawyer, like there's a lawyer he keeps trying to get in there and negotiate him with. He keeps walking in and out of this place. He gives him a lawyer, or the lawyer gets a letter saying that, like, David Koresh says he's gonna give up once he finishes writing a book on the 7 seals from Revelations. Do you have any idea what that is? Because I have no idea what that is.
7 seals of Revelations. Oh, it's been a hot minute. But basically, the 7 seals are like, these are the requirements or the seals that have to be broken in order for to set Judgment Day in motion.
Oh, right? He's an apocalyptic one? Okay.
So there's different levels, but after all seals have been broken, eventually, yeah, that's basically the apocalypse.
Okay, so he's writing his old story on that. That's what he wants time for. Okay. They're always apocalyptic cults, you know? It's always a doomsday with these people. Even Charles Manson, there's always a doomsday on the horizon. But when is there? You know, like the original cult, when it started, the original doomsday was like 1959, and they're like, it's gonna happen then, and it didn't happen, so they broke off and became the Branch Davidians. It didn't work once, bro. Just quit predicting the doomsday. I'm tired of this shit.
Well, the good thing is, never mind.
If I what?
I was gonna say, the good thing is, if you are a Christian, you believe in this, you automatically know that anyone who's predicting the future is gonna be wrong. Yeah, exactly. Nobody knows the end day. So I always think of that like, hey, if you see all these people predicting the end day, well, you know it's not on that day.
All right, but back to the story. After he's given this lawyer, on day 46, he gives this lawyer his letter, he's like, I want to finish writing my book. Obviously, they're like, this is a bunch of mumbo jumbo. I'm not going to hear this. We're not going to sit here and talk to this man anymore. So on April 19th, 1993, it is day 51 of the raid. At 6 a.m., the speaker comes out from the military, and it says, this is not an attack. We're not attacking you. We're going to gas the building with CS gas and come in. Just come out safely with no incident. No one's going to be harmed. Now, the moment the vehicle, which is a tank, goes up to the building to, like, you know, the little nose thing on the tank gives the gas to the building. First of all, let me just say one thing that I found out later on. They used tanks a couple times to, like, go up close to the building and kind of scope it out and see what was going on. The Branch Davidians had asked, like, can we bury our dead? You want to attack us? We come outside to do that. They buried their dead. They're like, we tried to bury it in places they wouldn't run over with the tanks. And then we ran them over with the tanks anyways. They asked nicely, could you not run over our dead? We're putting them here. We're not trying to make any peace. We just, like, you know, want to bury them in a mass grave and we'll take care of it later. They still ran their bodies over. That is so fucked. Like, I am so anti-cult. Fuck these cult people, right?
Yeah.
But, like, that's their dead, man.
Did they not mark them?
They did. It was like a little... They buried them all together so that after everything was settled, they could, you know, do the proper burial. They still ran over their bodies with a tank.
Did they not, like, somehow put a stick or something in there to mark, hey, this is the area? Because I'm like, I mean, with a desert like that, I mean, if you could dig up the ground and if you don't mark it, like, whatever, you wouldn't know.
It's still messed up, though. Like, I mean, I'm totally anti-cult. These fucking people were horrible, but, like, you ran over their dead. That's fucked. Yeah. It's morally not right.
No.
But anyways, they go up to the building to put the CS gas inside. They smush through one of the walls to, like, use a window that they think is dangerous.
Smushed through.
It looked like it smushed through. It just kind of broke into the wall to release the gas. They didn't use a window is what I'm saying. They just put it in the wall because it's a weak building. Also,
anything's weak compared to a tank.
I mean, yeah. It did look like it easily smushed through, but it is a tank. Also, I'll get into a minute why that was probably a bad decision. But the moments the vehicles started putting gas into the building, the cult members started firing on the tanks and everyone outside. Obviously, they were upset they're making moves on them without their consent. They thought they were trying to get negotiations, trying to get airtime and stuff like that. Now, once they started firing back at them, the authorities did not fire back. They were got a distance away. They let the cult members fire at them, but they did not fire back at these people at all. They just let them ride it out after 30 minutes of gunfire. After 30 minutes of gunfire from the Branch Davidians, 2 fires started in the main building. So they started on the ends of the building, and then the fire spread to meet in the middle. And they were waiting for people to, like, start, like, fleeing the scene. Like, cult members who were not into this, like, run out. They only saw 2 people during this whole building burning down thing to actually, like, jump off the roof and try to survive. Everyone else stayed inside, even in the bunkers and stuff. The FBI had implanted listening devices into the building at some point. And from what they heard, it was obvious that the David Koresh guy had ordered his members to light the fires themselves. But of course, a couple survivors of this on the Branch Davidian side said no, they didn't light the fire. But it's a crazy cult, dude. Of course, I mean, I'm not going to believe him over anybody else. Now, only 2 or 3 members, like I said, tried to escape. Everyone else stayed inside. There were a total of 76 members inside. The entire building burned down to the ground, so much that the buildings collapsed. Now, some people said that the tanks running into the walls, and it was not the best structure in the world, may have actually made part of the roof collapse, killing some members inside. But there's no proof of that. Like, the building fell on itself. Who's to say what made it fall? It was literally on fire. 9 members of the compound survived, and they said that there was, like, this wasn't planned, this wasn't their fault, and it was not a mass suicide. What do you think if they don't come out, though? I think if you don't come out, it's a suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's windows. There's a ton of windows. There's doors. If you wanted to escape, you would. To the extent, you know? Like, I know, yeah. I mean, now, some people were not. Obviously, this wasn't a suicide for everyone. There was 1 child stabbed to death once they recovered some bodies. and some were killed with gunshot wounds, including 2 of the leaders and David Koresh. So, like, some people were stabbed, some people, you know, had smoke inhalation, some died from burns.
So they did recover his body.
Yeah, he was shot. Of course, the fucking coward didn't want to burn up with everybody else.
You would have thought that they would have made some contingency and have, like, some tunnel trails underground.
Well, they had a bunker, but it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they were working on it. They were expanding the compound.
That would have been smarter.
Yeah, probably. But, like, just,
you know,
like...
if he was a messiah or whatnot, I should have seen that coming. Maybe have, you know, some tunnels dug.
He planned the fire and everything. You think you would know where to go, but, you know, could have left out the back door or some shit, but no. Also, I fucking hate cult leaders who, like... So we talked about Heaven's Gate. The dude went down with the ship. You know, good on him. He went down with his people, I guess. But, like, people like Jonestown and this motherfucker, you kill everybody one way and you do yourself different. You know, it's fucked up to me. Just go down with everybody else, you're gonna go down, I guess. I mean, it's fucked up still, but, like, you're let everybody else burn up to death, you might as well too.
Yeah.
Most of the people weren't actually
But see,
identified.
that's the thing, right? So they finally did what they should have did from the fairly beginning.
Literally day 2. Day fucking 2.
They gassed them, right? And, of course, they saw that, oh crap, this is it, because that actually worked, so he decided to kill himself. So that was the plan all along.
I mean, he
right?
set fire first.
I mean, yeah, the outcome still would have been the same because obviously he was not going to have anyone taken alive, including himself.
Yeah, but that's not on the government.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's not on the government. It's just I'm saying if they would have just started out doing this from the beginning, they could have shortened this. You still would have gotten the same outcome, but it would have shortened everything up.
By like 49 days.
Give or take, yeah.
I mean, day 1 you might have tried to negotiate. Day 2 you go in that bitch.
Yeah.
You know. I got time for y'all shit right now. So most of the bodies were not identified. Some of them were, and they were like, the government took the bodies that weren't identified or didn't get claimed by family, and they buried them all in like a cemetery that just left like a little stone there that just says unknown or whatever. People thought that was really disrespectful, burying them like animals. But if they don't know their names and they don't know where else to put these people no one claims, what do you expect them to do, is my thought process. You know, like they still try to name them, they put a little placard for them. It's not like they buried them in a mass grave and left it unmarked. But some people find that disrespectful. Of the 9 survivors, 8 of them were charged with crimes, none of them charged with murder, and the other one who wasn't charged landed a deal with like testifying and stuff. None of them were charged with murder crimes or attempted murder on the officers or the agents because you couldn't prove that they were the ones shooting, of course. And they've all been released since 2007 or earlier. At the end of this, there are 4 ATF agents dead from the first day, originally in February, 81 cult members, including 25 children, 2 pregnant women, and Koresh himself. 75 people died on the day of the fire. And of course, like I said, some were stabbed, some gunshot wounds and stuff like that. Now, after the ATF's investigation, it showed that the group had acquired 136 firearms, including assault rifles and handguns, over 700 magazines for those firearms. You've loaded a magazine. Your fucking thumbs must kill you.
Speed reload. Fuck that shit. I ain't doing a hand by hand. Of course, even so...
No, it's the 90s, though. You gotta, like, you know, thumb it in there.
Oh, screw that. Now,
they don't have fancy stuff.
Even so, 136 guns.
Yes, firearms.
Firearms.
I mean, there could be handguns and stuff.
How many... Do we have an approximate number of how many cultists there were?
Yeah, it was 100 living in the compound.
100? And then, so 100, so you have a couple spare rifles, guns, whatever.
I mean, a bunch if you consider not using it on children, but who knows? I mean, you could have a 12-year-old shooting a gun.
Well, what I'm saying is, how did they make that ammo last?
Because they had over 200,000 rounds of ammunition.
Oh.
Also, in the 90s, ammunition was a lot cheaper than it is now. Yeah. But 200,000 rounds...
I was just going based off the magazine. I was assuming you meant by, like, those magazines.
Like a 30 magazine on a rifle or...
Yeah, and that's what they had, but no.
No, they had 700 magazines empty. Or full of stuff. There was magazines everywhere.
Okay.
But 200,000 or more rounds of ammunition. Over on the first day when they attacked the ATF agents, they had spent over 1,000 casings that were on the ground. So that's a lot. 110 upper and lower receivers for AR-15s and M16 rifles. A grenade launcher attachment. So they didn't have the grenade launcher. They had the attachments. Of course, they wanted to acquire one. So they had the grenade launcher attachments for AR-15 and M16s as well.
So M203.
What's an M203?
A grenade launcher. It's M203 is the grenade launcher attachment for the M16.
Yeah. Okay. And then over 400 empty M31 rifle grenades, which I don't know what that is, along with black powder, other explosive chemicals, which again I feel like is pretty easy to acquire. You can make a bomb out of anything you want to.
I mean, all that stuff is pretty easy to acquire.
700 magazines seems like a lot.
When you factor in that they work in that trade.
Yeah, I mean, you go to enough gun shows, you can get whatever you want. But it seems like a lot. 200,000 rounds? The fuck are you doing? What are you doing? Like, if you didn't expect this to happen, they didn't expect to get raided and have to kill everybody. What the fuck are you doing with that? I don't know, it seems excessive.
It's just one of those hobbies where you collect one and then before you know it, you're balls deep in ammo.
So anyways, what do you think of this case? Do you think, like, okay, I lean towards this was a mass suicide. I'm sorry. I do. They didn't escape.
No.
And from the way they found their bodies, when they did find the bodies and what remains were left after the fire, it didn't look like anybody heading towards the door. So, thoughts?
Same thing as the bus case that we had.
Yeah, where they killed the guy in the bus.
Yeah.
Should've gassed him.
Granted, yes, the bus case shouldn't have lasted more than an hour.
And he shouldn't be free with a new name.
That one was much easier than this one. This one is a lot more of a delicate situation, but
it is,
still should have been the same.
People inside of the fucking building.
Still should have been the same though. They could have. I mean, again, I wasn't there to 100% say what all the variables and parameters were.
I'm sure there's a lot more than we're getting into, but
the outcome still should have been the same. They could have shortened this a lot.
Like you get the innocent people out, but you take charge of it. You don't sit there and like let them lean back and make negotiations, be on TV and shit. You don't give them all that power that they want.
I wouldn't put it on TV at all. I would have had them.
Well,
I would have allowed a news person on there.
They did make those negotiations so that some children could get out, which I appreciate and that's smart. But you're also giving this guy exactly what he wants. He's getting on TV. He's getting his little message out there. I don't agree with it. Also, anybody who says he's like the second coming, what the fuck, bro? You think you're that fucking great? What?
You know what though?
What?
I bet he can't raise himself from the dead.
He hasn't. For shame.
It's been a lot longer than 7 days.
Yeah, and apparently when he shot himself in the roof of the mouth, he really did it crooked, so he didn't even like do a good job of that. They said he like busted through his lip and stuff. He fucked that up.
Really stupid is you actually don't shoot yourself in the roof of the mouth. You actually point it straight back, so that way it takes out your cerebral, your cerebral cortex.
It attaches to your spine, right?
Instant lights out.
I mean, I do understand the whole concept. You can survive this or to the side of your head, but your mouth is more likely, but shooting yourself backwards does make a lot of sense too. But also, I feel like I don't want my jaw to flap backwards. I don't want to have like a head hanging off. You know, I'm scared of decapitation. Is there anything you're scared of? Like, I don't want to drown or be decapitated.
I'm scared of a lot of things.
As far as like, how would you die?
When I was a kid, my thing was drowning.
Drowning?
Didn't want to do drowning.
It seems like a long process. I don't want. It's fucking horrible.
Yeah, but what they say is it's actually the most peaceful out of them all.
I'd be struggling to get up. What are you talking about?
Well, what it is you freak out for a second, but once you start actually breathing in water, your brain goes into a sort of
trance,
sort of survival state where it starts releasing hormones, and then you start to just drift off.
I just think it's a whole panic thing.
And
sounds like a lot of panic to me.
So initially you start panicking, but then you just.
Actually, I don't know. Fire might sound getting burned alive might be worse than drowning.
That's my mom. That was my mom's biggest thing. She doesn't.
Fire?
She doesn't. Yeah, she doesn't want to burn alive. Of course, at that point, even so, if you've got a fire hot enough, once it covers your entire body, it scorches your nerve endings. So after a few seconds, you don't even feel it anymore.
No, I think
give or
fire
take. I would say a lot more than a few seconds, but yeah.
Don't you think though, like fire would be burning alive would be worse than?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Drowning.
I wouldn't want to do that either.
No, I think it's probably worse than drowning though, because drowning, I feel like you're not seeing it coming. You're gonna see a fire coming.
Yeah.
But anyways, you got any other thoughts on this case? I lean towards this as a suicide, but I do agree that the government could have handled this a lot better. 51 days of like torturing these people in and out of the building seems like a lot.
Yeah, there was no need for that.
No. But I mean, with the whole like who shot first thing, I don't know. At this point, no one's gonna know. You know?
Yeah. It just depends. I mean, it depends on if they followed sort of the rules that they have now, because we have rules of engagement. I'm not 100% sure if like local police departments and things like that
they're the
follow
ATF.
that, but I know, still federal.
Oh, rules of engagement? Yes, they do, actually. They do.
Okay, so and that just states that, and it's actually somewhat to an extent messed up, but yeah, even the military and stuff like that, we are not allowed to shoot back unless we are shot at first.
Exactly.
Or
you're not supposed to initiate.
Or there's just more like in danger, like if someone's running at you with a knife or something like that, obviously that's a threat. You can.
Well, that's the thing we run into with the cops all the time. People said they were in danger.
Yeah, exactly. But even then, they have rules of escalation.
Yeah, you literally can't tase people without first announcing you're going to be tased. Like, there's so many rules on these things.
Yeah.
I highly doubt a trained ATF agent was just, like, shooting.
Now, if the ATF, like you were saying, there was a dog involved and stuff like that, if the dog was attacking them, then yes, they could have shot the dog. And then that
Honestly,
could have sparked it.
You should just, like, handle the dog and then worry about shooting. Don't initiate that first. You can handle a dog without shooting it. Now, if someone's already shooting and it comes running towards you, go ahead. But, like, I don't think that's the first way to start it, especially when you know these people are armed. All right. Thank you guys so much.
Bye.